Security to Commissary 7. We have a code feral breach. Wait! The humans feeding them? Commander Vex froze in the cafeteria doorway, his primary manipulator hovering over his sidearm. Through the viewport, he could see the Korathi cubs. 3 of them, each capable of tearing through reinforced bulkheads, sitting in a semicircle around the human food service worker. The human was hand-feeding them something that looked suspiciously like the protein supplements from the kitchen stores. "Sir, your orders?" Lieutenant Cross whispered, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "The containment protocols say—" "I can see what the protocols say," Vex hissed. Every instinct screamed at him to activate the emergency barriers, to flood the compartment with sedation gas, to do something. But the human, Kai, his mind supplied unhelpfully, was sitting cross-legged on the floor, making soft cooing sounds while the cubs ate from his hands. The cubs were purring. Korathi cubs didn't purr. They screamed. They attacked. They entered blood rage states that required military intervention to contain. The treaty documents from 80 years ago were very clear about that. An entire war had been fought over the uncontrollable aggressive nature of Korathi juveniles. "Station AI, confirm visual," Vex said, his throat dry. "Are those the diplomatic cubs from Pod 12? "Affirmative, Commander. Genetic markers match the 3 juveniles designated as peace hostages under Treaty Section 4. Paragraph. Skip the citations," Vex snapped. "How long has this been happening?" "Approximately 17 minutes, sir." 17 minutes. The cubs should have killed the human in 17 seconds. "Commander, we need to act," Cross insisted. "If those cubs are harmed, if the Korathi ambassador thinks we've—" "The cubs aren't the ones I'm worried about," Vex muttered, watching as one of the juveniles, the largest one, with the distinctive black markings that meant it was from the Imperial bloodline, rested its head against Kai's knee. The human scratched behind its auditory ridges like he was petting some kind of domesticated animal. "Yeah, they were just hungry," Kai called out, apparently noticing the security team for the first time. He didn't even look concerned. "Anyone got more of those protein bars? These guys have serious appetites." "Do not move," Vex barked, finally finding his voice. "Those are Category 5 bioweapons. Their dermal secretions alone—" "Oh, you mean the venomy stuff?" Kai shrugged. "Yeah, I noticed that. Tingles a bit. They're really sweet once you get past the whole designed to murder you vibe." The casual tone made something in Vex's brain short-circuit. "Tingles? It tingles?" "Sir, I'm pulling up the xenobiological data now," Cross said, his voice climbing an octave. "Korathi juvenile venom causes complete neural shutdown in 93% of known species within 45 seconds of contact. The other 7% die slightly slower." Kai was now letting the smallest cub, a reddish one that couldn't have been more than 6 standard months old, lick his fingers. "Huh. Well, I'm feeling fine. Maybe a little hungry myself, actually. Hey, did someone trigger the lunch alarm early? The whole station rushed out of here like—" "That was the evacuation alert," Vex roared. "Oh," Kai blinked. "That explains why it was so loud. Anyway, these little guys were making a racket in the ventilation system, so I grabbed some food scraps and—" "You went toward the escaped predators?" "Well, yeah, they sounded scared." Kai said it like it was the most obvious thing in the galaxy. "Back on Earth, we have these things called puppies, and they make similar noises when they're—" "Those are not puppies!" The largest cub's head snapped up at Vex's shout, its triple rows of teeth visible as it hissed. Every security officer in the corridor raised their weapons. Hey, it's okay," Kai murmured, stroking the cub's armored spine. "He's just scared. Everyone's just scared." The cub subsided, pressing closer to Kai. "I need Dr. Jira down here immediately," Vex said into his comm, never taking his eyes off the impossible scene before him. "And get me a direct line to Sector Command. Also, the Korathi ambassador. Also—" He paused, trying to think through the pounding in his head. "Also, someone from the diplomatic corps who specializes in treaty violations that shouldn't be physically possible." "Sir, if I may," Cross ventured. What exactly is the treaty violation? I don't know yet, Vex admitted. But there has to be one. The universe doesn't just stop making sense. Kai laughed, actually laughed. You guys really need to relax. Look, I get that they're important or whatever, but they're basically just kids. Lonely, scared kids who got out of wherever you were keeping them, and Pod 12 is a state-of-the-art containment facility, Vex said stiffly. Temperature-controlled, atmospherically balanced, structurally reinforced. Is it cozy? What? Cozy, comfortable. Does it feel safe? Kai's expression was patient, like he was explaining something to a child. Because from what I saw through the vents, it looked like a prison cell. And these guys, he gestured to the cubs. They're pack animals, right? Social creatures. The Korathi are apex predators with documented aggressive. Yeah, I read the signs. Danger, hostile life forms. Approach results in death. The whole 9 yards. Kai rolled his eyes. But has anyone tried, I don't know, not treating them like they're about to murder everyone? The middle cub, greenish with bioluminescent markings, chirped and nuzzled against Kai's side. The human produced another protein bar from his pocket and broke it into pieces. Where did you even get those? Vex demanded. Kitchen storage. I've been experimenting with the recipe. Your standard rations taste like cardboard, by the way. No offense. The cubs' dietary requirements are precisely calculated. To keep them alive, sure, but not to make them happy. Kai offered a piece to the reddish cub. Happiness requires different nutrients. Vex felt his world tilting on its axis. In the corridor behind him, he could hear the rapid footsteps of Dr. Jira's arrival, accompanied by what sounded like half the xenobiology department. Through his command link, urgent voices demanded status updates, threat assessments, casualty reports. But in the cafeteria, a human sat on the floor with 3 of the most dangerous juveniles in known space, feeding them improvised snacks while they purred. Sir, Cross whispered. What do we do? Vex watched as Kai scratched behind the Imperial Cub's auditory ridges again, the massive predator's eyes half closing in what looked disturbingly like contentment. I have absolutely no idea, he admitted. Dr. Jira burst through the security cordon, her scanning equipment already active. The readings made her stop dead in her tracks. That's impossible, she breathed, staring at her datapad. Commander, the human has been in direct contact with Korathi dermal venom for, she checked again, 19 minutes now. He should be experiencing complete system failure. Yeah, I mentioned the tingling thing, Kai said cheerfully, not looking up from the cubs. The reddish one had fallen asleep against his leg. Is that going to be a problem later? Should I take an antihistamine or something? An Jira's voice cracked. The molecular structure of Korathi venom breaks down cellular cohesion at the atomic level. There is no treatment because nothing survives long enough to treat. Kai finally looked up, frowning slightly. Well, that seems like poor evolutionary design. What happens if they accidentally touch each other? They're immune to their own species' secretions, Jira said automatically, then shook her head. That's not the point. You're not Korathi. You should be dead. But I'm not. Kai shrugged. So maybe your data's wrong? Or maybe humans are just built different. We're pretty sturdy back home. Sturdy, Vex repeated flatly. You're describing immunity to a substance that has a 100% fatality rate as sturdy. Well, what would you call it? Before Vex could formulate a response that didn't involve screaming, his comm crackled to life. The face of Ambassador Threx appeared. The Korathi diplomat's facial ridges were fully extended in what Vex had learned to recognize as extreme agitation. Commander, I demand an immediate explanation for why my people's cubs are displaying comfort behaviors with an alien species, Threx said, her voice tight. This is unprecedented. Korathi juveniles do not... She paused, watching her own feed of the cafeteria. They do not do that. On the screen, the Imperial cub had rolled onto its back, allowing Kai to rub its armored belly. "They're basically just puppies with murder mittens," Kai said, apparently hearing the ambassador through Vex's comm. "Though, with more teeth. And the venom thing, but personality-wise, total sweethearts." Threx's translator struggled with puppies and murder mittens, producing a series of confused chirps. "Ambassador, I assure you we are investigating this situation with utmost priority," Vex said quickly. "Our xenobiological team is—" "Your team has had 80 years to understand Korathi juveniles," Threx interrupted, her eyes fixed on the screen. "That human has had 20 minutes and appears to understand them better than our own researchers." "To be fair," Kai interjected, "I'm not really understanding them so much as just treating them like kids. You know, giving them food they actually want, speaking in a calm voice, showing them they're safe. Basic stuff." "Basic," Jira muttered, her scanner now registering something new. "Commander, the cub's neurological patterns are showing formation of pack bonding responses. They're imprinting on the human." "That's impossible," Threx said sharply. "Korathi juveniles only imprint on their maternal parent. It's biologically hardwired. They cannot—" The greenish cub chirped and climbed into Kai's lap. "They cannot do that," Threx finished weakly. "Look, I don't want to tell you guys your business," Kai said, adjusting his position so the cub was more comfortable. "But maybe your data's based on cubs who are scared and defensive, because these guys seem pretty capable of affection when they're not, terrified." Vex pulled up the containment logs for Pod 12. Standard environmental controls, automated feeding systems, minimal contact protocols, everything by the book, everything designed to keep dangerous predators isolated and controlled. "Oh no," he said softly. "Sir," Cross asked. "We've been treating them like prisoners," Vex said, the realization hitting him like a plasma burst. "Hostile prisoners. And we wondered why they were hostile." "They are hostages, Commander," Threx said, but her voice lacked conviction. On the screen, all 3 cubs were now clustered around Kai, the picture of contentment. "Yeah, and they're kids," Kai added. "Scared kids who probably miss their parents and don't understand why they're locked in a cold room with no one to talk to." He looked directly at the camera. "You've got them for the treaty, right? To make sure everyone behaves. Well, they're behaving just fine now. Maybe the problem wasn't them." The cafeteria fell silent except for the soft purring of the cubs. Vex's comm exploded with incoming messages from Sector Command, all demanding explanations he didn't have. Within the hour, the cafeteria had become an impromptu command center. Dr. Jira had been joined by 3 additional xenobiologists, 2 Korathi behavioral specialists, and a very stressed diplomatic attaché. All of them stood in the corridor, staring at their various scanning devices with identical expressions of disbelief. "According to every piece of data we have," the senior Korathi specialist said slowly, "those cubs should have entered terminal blood rage approximately 43 minutes ago. The isolation from their containment pod, the presence of unknown species, the stress of the escape. Any one of these factors should have triggered it. And yet," Jira added, highlighting a section of her scan, "their stress hormones are at the lowest levels we've ever recorded, lower than in the containment pod, lower than in any controlled environment we've tested." Kai was now lying on the floor. The Imperial cub sprawled across his chest while the other 2 flanked him like guards. He appeared to be telling them a story. "So back on Earth, we have these things called cats," Kai was saying. "And they're basically tiny murder machines too, but we keep them in our houses because they're cute and they kill the mice." "What are mice?" the greenish cub chirped in flawless Korathi standard. Every alien in the corridor went rigid. "Did that juvenile just—" the diplomatic attaché started. "Speak a complete sentence in standard?" Vex finished. "Yes, but they're not supposed to develop language centers for another 8 months, the Korathi specialist said faintly. "The neural pathways aren't mature enough to—" "Mice are little fuzzy things with long tails," Kai explained, completely unbothered. They eat your food if you're not careful, so cats hunt them. It's a whole arrangement. Hunting, the imperial cub rumbled, the word slightly garbled by its developing vocal structure. Like we hunt? Well, kind of, but smaller scale, and usually inside buildings. Inside buildings, the reddish cub repeated, testing the words. Strange hunting. Jira's datapad clattered to the floor. They're having a conversation, an actual linguistic exchange about abstract concepts. Someone get me the treaty documentation, Vex ordered, his voice strained. Specifically the sections about Korathi cognitive development timelines. Cross pulled up the files, his face paling as he read. Sir, the entire treaty assumes that juveniles are pre-sentient, nonverbal, operating on pure instinct until physical maturity. Which we now know is completely wrong, Vex said. How many other assumptions in that treaty are wrong? Commander, if I may. Ambassador Threx's voice came through the comm. She hadn't disconnected, Vex realized. She'd been watching this entire time. I believe I need to contact the Korathi High Council immediately. What are you going to tell them? Vex asked. The truth. Threx's facial ridges rippled with something that might have been distress. That we've been treating our own children like mindless animals. That we believed our own propaganda about their nature. That a human food service worker has demonstrated more understanding of Korathi youth development in 1 hour than our entire scientific establishment has in centuries. Hey, I'm not trying to make anyone look bad, Kai called out. I just figured they needed someone to actually pay attention to them. You know, like kids do. Pay attention, the senior xenobiologist repeated, like the words were in a foreign language. We've had monitoring systems observing them constantly. That's not the same thing, Kai said gently. Monitoring is watching. Paying attention is caring. The imperial cub made a sound that the translator registered as contentment. Kai cares. Kai gives good food and soft sounds. I'm revising 4,000 years of Korathi psychological theory, the specialist muttered, rapidly typing notes. 4,000 years. Vex watched as Kai sat up, carefully supporting the cubs as he moved. The human reached into his pocket and pulled out more of the improvised protein bars. Okay, serious question, Vex said. What did you put in those? Just the standard protein base, but I added some synthesized fats for texture and a touch of the mineral supplement from Storage Bay 3, plus a little salt. Kai shrugged. Your regular rations are nutritionally complete, but they're boring. Nobody wants to eat boring food, especially not kids. Boring food, Jira repeated, writing that down. That's your scientific analysis? Boring food? I mean, yeah. Have you ever tried your own rations? They're awful. In the corridor, several species exchanged uncomfortable glances. So, let me get this straight, Vex said, feeling reality continue its steady dissolution around him. You solved an interspecies diplomatic crisis that has lasted 8 decades because you made the food taste better? Kai considered this. That, and I didn't treat them like they were about to kill me. Fear makes everything worse, you know? The cubs chirped in agreement. The Korathi High Council materialized on the main view screen 2 hours later, their collective presence filling the cafeteria with an almost physical weight. 12 of the most powerful figures in Korathi space, and every one of them was staring at the human sitting cross-legged on the floor with their species' diplomatic cubs. Ambassador Threx has made extraordinary claims, the council matriarch said, her voice carrying the harmonics of centuries. We require visual confirmation before we proceed. Kai, could you? Vex started, but the human was already moving. Hey, little ones, Kai said softly. There are some people who want to meet you, important people. Can you show them how amazing you are? The imperial cub stood, stretching like a creature 3 times its size, then approached the view screen. Greetings, honored council, it said in perfect formal Korathi. This one is called Vrath. This one has learned many new concepts today. The silence on the council's end was absolute. Vrath is speaking, one of the council members whispered. Full sentences, proper grammar structure. That's not possible at his developmental stage, another added. Yeah, that's what everyone keeps saying, Kai interjected. But maybe he could always do it. Maybe he just needed someone to actually talk to him instead of at him. The greenish cub joined Vrath. This one is Serix. Kai teaches us Earth concepts. Earth has hunting inside buildings and small fuzzy creatures and something called compassion that makes fear go away. The reddish cub pressed against Kai's side. This one is Mira. We were scared before. The cold place made us scared. But Kai makes safe. On the view screen, the council matriarch's facial ridges trembled. You were frightened. In the containment facility. Always frightened, Vrath confirmed. Cold, alone. Loud noises from outside, but no one comes inside. Food appears, but no one speaks. We did not understand our purpose. We thought we had been abandoned for being insufficient. Insufficient, the matriarch repeated, the word barely audible. You thought we had cast you out? What else were we to believe? Serix asked simply. The council chamber erupted in what the translator struggled to render as a combination of grief, horror, and fury. But not fury at the cubs or the humans. Vex watched as the most powerful karate in existence faced the consequences of their own protocols. We have committed an atrocity, the matriarch said finally, against our own children. In the name of peace, we created suffering. To be fair, Kai said carefully, I don't think anyone meant for it to turn out this way. The treaty was written during a war, right? Everyone was scared and angry and trying to prevent more death. But fear-based solutions create fear-based problems. The human is correct, Ambassador Threx said, her voice steady despite the trembling of her ridges. We demanded hostages, and they demanded the same. We housed them as we would house weapons. Contained, controlled, isolated. We never considered that we were traumatizing children. And we never asked, Vex added quietly. We had our protocols, our scientific data, our certainties. We never questioned whether our certainties were wrong. Dr. Gira stepped forward. Council Matriarch, I recommend immediate revision of all juvenile care protocols. The humans' methods, simply providing appropriate nutrition, social interaction, and emotional security, have produced results that our most advanced techniques never achieved. The human has a name, Kai said mildly. And these aren't techniques, it's just basic decency. Basic decency, the matriarch echoed. Something we forgot in our sophistication. She turned her full attention to Kai. Human Kai, the Korathi people owe you a debt we cannot quantify. You have returned our children to us. Not just their physical forms, but their trust, their voices, their hope. I just fed them better food and talked to them, Kai protested. Exactly. The matriarch's ridges softened into what might have been a smile. You treated them as people, as children, deserving of care. We treated them as political instruments. The contrast reveals our failure clearly. So what happens now? Vex asked. Now we fix what we have broken, the matriarch said firmly. The treaty must be renegotiated. The cubs will be returned to their maternal families, not used as hostages, and we will establish proper exchange programs, voluntary, supervised, humane. She paused. With human consultation, clearly your species understands something about childhood that we have forgotten. Kai scratched behind Mira's auditory ridges. Kids are kids, pretty much everywhere. They need food, safety, love, and someone to listen to them. That's not complicated. Perhaps, the matriarch said softly. That is precisely why we failed to see it. 3 days later, Commander Vex stood in the station's main briefing room, watching as the newly revised protocols scrolled across every screen. Section after section of military doctrine, rewritten to account for a single, recurring phrase. Consult human personnel for behavioral assessment. This is going in every station manual in the sector, Cross said, reviewing his own datapad. Xenobiology departments across 12 systems are requesting human exchange personnel. The Korathi have established a formal council position for human perspective consultation. Because one of our food service workers fed some scared cubs better snacks, Vex muttered, though without any real bitterness. He'd filed the most surreal incident report of his career. Sector Command had responded by promoting the entire security team and requesting detailed documentation for the new training protocols. "Sir, you've received another message from the Galactic Diplomatic Corps," Cross added. "They want to know if Earth has more personnel like Kai available for assignment." "I'll forward it to Earth Command," Vex said, "though I suspect most humans would handle the situation similarly." "That's what concerns them, I think," Cross said quietly. "That this isn't exceptional human behavior. That it's normal for them." Down in the cafeteria, now officially designated as Multi-Species Social Integration Zone 7, Kai was back at his usual station, preparing the lunch service. The morning's chaos with the cubs felt like a distant memory, except for the 17 separate formal commendations stacked on his workstation and the new Interspecies Behavioral Consultant addendum to his personnel file. "You know what the really funny part is?" Kai said to the prep station AI. "Everyone's treating this like I did something amazing. I just gave some kids food and attention. That's it. That's the whole story." The AI, which had been recently updated with more sophisticated response protocols, chirped thoughtfully. "Analysis suggests your actions were considered remarkable precisely because they were simple. Complex problems often have simple solutions that experts overlook." "Yeah, well, tell that to my lunch prep schedule. I'm behind because the whole station evacuated 3 days ago." Kai gestured at the rows of vegetables that needed chopping. 300 servings of soup don't make themselves. The door chimed. Dr. Zira entered, carrying what looked like an entire portable lab's worth of equipment. "Please tell me you're not here to take more samples," Kai said, not looking up from his cutting board. "I gave you guys enough blood to run a clone." "Actually, I'm here to deliver the analysis results." Zira set down a datapad. "Your immunity to Karathi venom appears to be a general human trait. Something about your species evolved resistance to a wide variety of Earth-based toxins. We tested samples from the other human crew members. You're all resistant." "Huh, cool." Kai continued chopping carrots. "Anything else?" "The cubs asked about you this morning, before they were transferred to the diplomatic transport heading home." Zira's voice softened. "Vrath wanted to know if you'd visit Earth someday. He wants to see the small fuzzy mice creatures." Kai smiled. "They're good kids. I hope their families take good care of them. The Karathi High Council has established mandatory parental training programs based on your interactions. You've changed how an entire species approaches child rearing. I fed them better food and didn't treat them like monsters." "Yes," Zira said. "And in doing so, you prevented a potential war, revolutionized xenobiological theory, and forced the diplomatic establishment to reconsider 8 decades of policy." She paused. "Does that not seem significant to you?" Kai finally looked up, grinning. "I mean, sure. When you put it like that, it sounds impressive. But really, I was just doing my job. Kids were hungry. I fed them. The rest is just everyone else figuring out what they should have known already." "Which is?" "That kids are kids, no matter where they're from. They need the same things: food that doesn't taste like cardboard, someone to talk to, and adults who actually care about them instead of just monitoring them." Kai returned to his vegetables. Pretty basic stuff, honestly. Zira watched him work for a moment. "You're going to have diplomatic representatives from 6 species showing up for consultations over the next week." "Yeah, I saw the schedule. I told them they'd have to talk to me while I cook. I've got actual work to do." "You're remarkably casual about reshaping galactic society." "Someone's got to be." Kai gestured at the massive pot of soup base. "Now, are you going to help me prep this, or are you just here to remind me I accidentally became important?" Zira actually laughed. "I'll help, but only if you teach me how you made those protein bars the cubs liked." "Deal." First lesson, stop thinking like a scientist and start thinking like someone who actually has to eat the food. As they worked, the cafeteria slowly filled with the station's personnel, returning to their normal routines. The crisis had passed. The protocols had been updated. The galaxy had fundamentally shifted its understanding of Karathi development, human capabilities, and the importance of treating children with basic dignity regardless of species. And in the middle of it all, a human cook made soup and cracked jokes about his lunch schedule, completely unbothered by the fact that he'd changed everything. "Hey, Zira," Kai said as he stirred the massive pot. "You think next time the universe has a crisis, they'll try asking nicely first before jumping straight to military containment? After this? Probably." She chopped her assigned vegetables with careful precision. "You've made it rather difficult for anyone to justify not trying compassion first." "Good," Kai said, tasting the soup and adding more seasoning. "That's honestly all I was going for." Behind them, the station hummed with life, forever changed by the simple act of someone caring enough to feed scared children and treat them like they mattered. Which, Kai reflected as he served the first bowl of the day, was really what everyone deserved anyway.